Welcome to the Feria TechCast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today we are joined by Damien Schreurs, a former R&D engineer turned technology mentor and host of the Macpreneur Podcast, who specializes in helping solopreneurs leverage automation and AI to reclaim their time and boost productivity. With over a decade of experience running his own business after transitioning from corporate engineering, Damien has mastered the art of using technology not just as a tool, but as a strategic partner. From programming on an Amiga 500 in the 1980s to now exploring AI-driven workflow optimization, he brings an engineer's precision to solving real-world challenges. So, Damien, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ezekiel, for having me.
So, tell us, what was the moment you knew it was time to leave your corporate job and go all in on your own business?
Yeah, so it took me a few years to actually transition from my corporate engineering career to solopreneurship, and so there were different, I would say, milestones. The first milestone, which was actually the actual decision to start my own business, was the birth of my first daughter, and but it took years after that to become actually reality. And during that time, so my daughter was born in 2007. I started my business in 2013 while still working part-time for my employer. So you see, 6 years. In those 6 years, I actually experimented outside of my job, my day job, and experimented using actually non-profit a non-profit organization. So it was absolutely not commercial, right? There were no legal problem with my employer because I was doing that totally for free in a non-profit organization. And that gave me the confidence that actually I enjoyed like working one-on-one with other people, like teaching technology. Actually, I taught classes. I taught group classes, and I also did one-on-one consulting on the side. And so, because I was talking a lot about starting my own business, it's actually my wife who pushed me and said, when will you actually do it? She like asked me that question. And so I decided, okay, let's give myself this arbitrary milestone of my 40 years, my 40th birthday, for the day when I want to have my own business. And so a few months earlier than that, so I'm born in June, so that was the deadline. A few months before that, I actually contacted my employer and I asked them if they actually agreed for me to work part-time and start my own business on the side. And yeah, they agreed. I wanted to work 50% part-time. It didn't fly with them. And so we agreed in the end with a 70% part-time, 30% where it was a day and a half, like Thursday afternoon and Friday the whole day, plus the evening and the weekends, where I was allowed to develop my own business because there was no competition with what my employer was doing. And also just with like an addendum to my contract and conditions, right? They had put conditions in place in such a way that if my performance degraded at work, they would revoke my allowing me to have the side business. And to come back to your question, when was the time when in the end I actually jump from employment to entrepreneurship full time? That was when I realized that I could not have the impact that I wanted to have on the company at the time. I wanted to have more impact in the way they operated, and I did a big transition internally, going from more technical engineering background to a process improvement kind of role. And I thought if I go in that direction, maybe I can change a little bit the way they work. But I realized that actually there's more a company culture. It's more company culture thing. And it was in the end, it's not a culture clash, but I realized that the way I wanted to work, and also the time I wanted to be able to allocate to my family, and the time freedom, but more the location freedom, was not aligned with what I could do as an employee in that corporation. I have nothing wrong or negative to say about my employer. Actually, they are a very good employer, but it was me in that part of my life, and having children now who were like between 7. So yeah, when I started, my eldest daughter was 7, the youngest was 5. So with children in that age, I realized that I wanted to have more freedom with the way the ability to show up at school, to take a week off, to go with my daughter for a school trip, which I did when I was full-time as an entrepreneur. And yeah, these kind of things, that's when I decide, okay, no, I need at one point to find a business model and to leave the corporate environment. And my final, let's say, when I decided that it was time to leave was when I had put enough money aside to cover my expenses and the expenses of the family. And my threshold was minimum 18 months. So I need to be able to survive without any salary for 18 months. And when I got that amount of money in the bank, ready to go, that's when I actually resigned. And because I had more than 10 years of career there, I had to give them 6 months in advance a notice. And so I had 6 months. And over those 6 months, most of the things that I did was finish off a few projects and also basically document all my processes and train people so that they would be able to take over whatever I was doing at the time.
Wonderful. That's a really great story. So you ran your business solo for 10 years before hiring help. What's the one task you automate that made the biggest difference for you?
Well, that's a tough question to pinpoint one thing, one automation. Well, I think maybe and so there are two things, right? You have automation and then you have delegation. So I will start with the delegation because that's an easy one. The one thing where I felt would add the least value and would be maybe the most error prone and potentially have negative repercussion on the company itself was all the financial side of things, and especially the tax filing and stuff like that. So my first executive decision was to actually hire an accountant, and from almost day one, I had delegated that part. So yes, it was a big cost. It was actually at the time my biggest expense, but I don't regret it because that allowed me to focus on finding clients and delivering the services to my clients. The reason why I find this question difficult is because the truth is it's a collection of little automations. The same way that when you look at a car and you say what's the most important part of a car, it's very difficult, right? The wheels are important, the engine is important, the chassis is important, the suspension is important, right? So, and so in the end, I think, that's maybe the message I want to give to the audience, to your listener, is that it's maybe a fool's errand to try to, or to think that there will be this one automation that I will put in place and it will help me a lot. And sure, automations help, but the true power for me is system thinking, right? So without system thinking, you cannot implement real powerful automations without that. And by system thinking, I really refer to the idea of clearly documenting and mapping your processes. So when you run a company, as a company, we have many processes. At very high level, there is the processes that are external facing. So everything from the first touch point of a prospect to delivering a product or a service, delivering a service to the client. There are many steps in between. So that's a process. We have processes, we have internal processes. So in my case, I was delivering a group training. I was doing a one-on-one consulting. And for all those kind of services, there are preparation steps, and then going and delivering the service, and then post-service tasks and so on. And in the end, if that is not clear, then it's very difficult to streamline and to automate and to find areas for improvement, and also discovering where automation can fit. So, what else? For me, there are also different kind of automations, right? There are automations simply by when using a computer, and for me, the simplest form of automation, and maybe the fastest way to start with automation on a computer is to learn how to do text replacement, right? So as solopreneurs, we have to type a lot. We have to respond to clients, answer questions from prospects and stuff like that. And or we interact online a lot. There are always those phrases or snippets of text that we have to repeat, right? Like the URL of our website, maybe our bank account number or our phone number, stuff like that. So very small things, but put together, the fact that we have to type them often, if we can replace this text by just a few letters, that can already save us in aggregate a lot of time. And then we can go to more complex automation, like the one, and I wouldn't say is the most important, but maybe I can share my first more elaborate automation. And that is about how I dealt with leads and prospects. And so typically a lead would fill the contact form on my website. And if you don't have any automation, what will happen is you will get an email. And in that email will be information about your prospects, so email, phone number, address, and maybe the reason why they contacted me in the first place. And usually, so typically, we would need then to copy paste information into a CRM, and maybe afterwards we would need to copy information into our invoicing software, or if we have an accounting software / invoicing software, the place where we create, for instance, an estimate, and we have to send the estimate. To prepare the estimate, maybe again we have to copy paste information. So basically, we can lose a lot of time, or we can spend time doing a lot of manual operations. And what I did from the get-go was automate that whole chain. So as soon as somebody clicked the submit button on the EasyTech website, when they have an inquiry, what happened is that I had a Zapier. I'm using Zapier a lot for the web automations. Zapier automatically created a new lead in my CRM, which is Podio. And so automatically, all this information was captured. But on top of that, the next step of the automation was to add these contact details into Google Contacts, so that if the person calls, or if I want to call the person, I just open my phone and I find the person in my address book. Right? No need to copy paste anything. But on top of that, I created a task in Todoist, which is my task manager. I create a task to obviously follow up, to make sure that I am aware that somebody filled the contact form, and with a task, with a link to Podio, my CRM. So even when I look at my task manager, I can just click or tap, and immediately I go to the right place in my CRM. And so this is one example of automation where for some people, they would need to hire a virtual assistant, because if you have a lot of leads coming in, it can be a lot of work. But actually, in my case, I never needed to hire anyone, because I found a way to automate those steps, fully automate those steps.
Oh, sure. So, that was a really wonderful response, Keith. And yeah, it was quite practical as well. So, tell us, Damien, for engineers who dream of starting their own thing, what's the first practical step you can recommend to take?
Well, for me, the exercise that I did was to really find this intersection between what I really enjoy doing, what I believe there is a demand for, and also where I could earn some money, right? Because you can have a passion about something, but you will never make money out of that, right? So it's this intersection of those things, and then, yeah, that again, it will depend about the current employer and how competitive what the person wants to do compared to what they are doing, right? So if somebody is working, I don't know, as an electrical engineer somewhere, and they are really passionate about electrical engineering, and they want to start the same kind of job on their own, that's going to be, I don't think they will be able to do what I did and ask the employer for part-time, because that's going to be a really competitive type of work. But if they are electric engineers, electronic engineers, and on the side, they absolutely enjoy, I don't know, woodworking and creating nice ornaments out of wood, or furniture or stuff like that, and sell that on a marketplace, for instance. Yeah, sure. They have to look at the contract. Just to reiterate, my contract, the contract that I signed with my employer, forbid me to have my own business. That's why I went to HR, and we had this discussion, and we had this addendum to my work contract. Otherwise, I could not have done that, let's say, legally. I could have been fired if I had done it without telling them. That's the bottom line. So always make sure that you read your contract, and then see how much what you're doing is potentially in competition with your employer or not. And maybe something that it's easy to recommend, something that you have not done, because in hindsight, it's always 2020. I was always concerned about putting myself online for things that were not aligned with my current employment. And now I regret it. I regret not having started really a blog or something that would show that would have helped me to display my skills and be seen as an authority on something else than my job at the time, right? So to give you an idea, I only put on LinkedIn that I had my own business when I left my job. So for 3 years, I had Easy Tech, but it was not written on my LinkedIn profile, for instance. So I'm Generation X, and there are stories about the fact that Gen X, we tend to be very loyal towards our employers, much more loyal than Gen Y and especially Gen Z. And so, yeah, I don't know who is listening to this, and maybe you believe I'm crazy for doing that, but no, I felt I had some loyalty and obligation, or I refrained myself, which in the end actually was a complete disservice to me, because it took me then many more years to establish myself as an authority. And so, yeah, again, depending on what is it you want your business to be versus what you are currently doing. Always think about that.
Great. So, Damien, tell us a bit about Easy Tech and the kind of IT trainings and coachings that you offer.
Yeah, so EasyTech is a training and coaching company. It's based in Luxembourg, so it's a small country stuck between Belgium, France, and Germany. And most of the business today is local. So I work as an external contractor for governmental agencies, but also small enterprises that want and need training, mostly around technology. So most of the revenue today is coming from Microsoft Office training, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint, a little bit of Outlook, but it's mostly the Microsoft Office suite, and that is what is used by most corporations, but also governments here in Luxembourg. And in addition to that, I also have developed a specific smartphone security training program. And in addition to that, now I have started offering artificial intelligence training as well. And for the coaching side of things, that's more for small business owners or solopreneurs, where I help them one-on-one. There are different kinds of services, right, in that space. And what I like to do is the DWI, the done with you kind of services. So I call that coaching, but it's not really the same thing as business. So when you think about a business coach, the business coach is really just there asking you questions, yes, maybe guiding you a little bit, but it's helping you clarify a situation. That's really what coaching is about. What I call coaching is a mix of training and consulting. So I've basically made up my own definition of coaching, in the sense that one of my philosophies is if you give someone a fish, they will eat one day. If you teach them how to fish, they will eat their whole life. And so what typically happens in a one-on-one, again, coaching situation for me is that the client, the business owner or the solopreneur will have a bunch of questions about how to be more productive on their computer. And usually nowadays it's using a Mac, but when I started doing artificial intelligence coaching, it became bigger, right? Both, it doesn't matter if they have a PC, a Windows PC, or a Mac. And so we tackle those questions and those challenges. And typically what I will do is, because they don't know what to do and how to do it, I will guide them, I will help them and give them the solution, which is not really coaching, but I will give them the solution but I will let them implement the solution. So I will be by their side. And if it's really too complicated, nowadays we can do remote. I can take control by remotely of their computer, and then I can do certain operations myself, but I really try so that most of the things they do it by themselves, so that they learn how to do it, right? So that the next time that they have the same question or the same problem, they would be able to then resolve that and tackle that by themselves. So that's really my goal. Is I really don't like being a firefighter, and I don't like to be a doctor, right? When I started the company, there was another company called PC Doctor in Luxembourg, and I really didn't like that concept to to be there as a doctor. I really wanted them to learn how to be self-sufficient. And yes, they will face new problems, and when they can't solve the solution, they call me, and then I teach them, okay, yeah, in that specific case, this is how you do it, this is what you do. But again, let them do it so that they learn how to tackle and solutions. And with AI now, I realized initially I was a bit afraid that AI would replace me as a consultant, but I realized, no, I think it's good, because now I'm teaching my clients to use AI rather than calling me, because most of the time when they call me because they have an issue, it's if they don't do it, I will do it. I will ask ChatGPT or Gemini and explain exactly basically explain their email, what their problem is. I will put that in a large language model, and I will get a pretty good first way to tackle the situation. So now I'm teaching them to use AI to basically replace me, or to replace the part of the job that basically I dislike. I really dislike troubleshooting. I'm good at it, but I don't see myself, I don't see my value as being a troubleshooter. My value is more in helping people figure out how to leverage technology rather than go past a tech problem. And so for that, I really like the way AI is going at the moment.
That's interesting. So, Damien, you've used various computers with different operating systems, all the way from the 80s up to now, including operating systems like Windows, Unix, and Mac OS. So, tell us, why did you finally settle for you're using a Macintosh, and why do you believe Mac is the best computer for entrepreneurs and solo founders?
Yeah, so the reason why I switched to a Mac, and it was in 2007, is because at the time I really believed that the Mac was the ideal machine for someone who liked to use many different kinds of operating systems. So 2007, it was 1 or 2 years after Apple transitioned from another architecture to the Intel architecture. And so before that, it was not possible to run Microsoft Windows on a Mac. But as soon as they transitioned to the Intel processors, then it was suddenly possible. And not only to boot Microsoft Windows, but then also to install Linux. And so for me, it was really the ideal machine, right? So I would boot normally into macOS for most of the things that I would do. But then there were specific things, and at that time I still had a few software solutions that were not on the Mac, but only on Windows. And so I had to pay for a Windows license, and At the time, I think it was Windows 7. Yeah, that's a good question. Which version was it? I think it was Windows 7 and then with Windows 8. And in the end, I ended up with on the 2007 machine. No, I did not install later than that. But yeah, I could turn off the Mac, turn it on again, press a special key on the keyboard and choose to boot into Windows versus Mac. So I had split my hard drive into two partitions. There was the bigger partition for macOS, and then there was a small partition enough for Windows, plus a few applications, plus a little bit of storage. And so, yeah, I was able to boot between the two. And on the Linux side, I was mostly using virtual machines. So inside macOS, I had, don't remember which one I was using at the time. And I think it was a VMware Fusion that I was using. And yeah, I could then boot up and try out any Linux distros that I wanted. Because these old iMacs and Macs at the time, even the MacBooks, they had a built-in DVD player and writer. So I would just burn a CD with a Linux distribution, pop it in, then launch a virtual machine that would pull the content of the CD and test out a bunch of Linux distribution like that. And so, yeah, for me, it was the ideal machine. Fast forward to actually 2020, and Apple made the next transition. They transitioned from the Intel architecture to their own Apple Silicon chips, and basically the processors that are inside the Mac today are like beefed up versions of the processor that are inside the iPhone. It's the same technology. It's just bigger chips, more processors, more memory, shared memory, and yeah, just more power. And that changed a little bit the equation because we can't boot Windows anymore the same way that we could with an Intel Mac. However, because it's a shared memory architecture, so the memory is shared between the CPU and the GPU, because of that, it means that we can use much more memory for graphics-intensive tasks than with typical Intel processors. And so the reason why the Mac, and especially today, the Mac is the best platform for solopreneurs or for entrepreneurs is, one, if you have a powerful enough processor with enough memory, you actually blow out of the water even the fastest graphics card. Right? The most NVIDIA graphic card, they have 12 or 14 gigabytes of memory maximum. But if you buy today a Mac with 32 gigs of shared memory, the GPU can have most of those 32 gigs. So much more memory than any NVIDIA chips can have on the PC side of things. So that's number one. But number two, most Macs sold today are laptops, the MacBooks and the MacBook Airs and the MacBook Pros. And those chips are very energy efficient, much more energy efficient than Intel chips or AMD chips. And basically that means you have incredible battery life, right? So with a Mac today, you have 12, 16 hours of battery life. So basically now I still have an Intel iMac. That's the computer I'm using for recording this episode. But in front of me, I have one of the newer, an M2 Pro MacBook Pro. So one of those Apple Silicon generation. And apart from when I need to really give a full day training session, then yes, I take the charger with me. But otherwise, if I just have to go to a client for a small meeting or to a prospect for a meeting, I don't take the charger. And even if I know that I leave in the morning and I come back in the evening, I don't take the charger, and I'm not worried about it because I know it has extremely great battery life. And then the next thing is, even though we cannot say that a Mac is more secure than a PC, because no computer system and no operating system is really immune to viruses and so on. I strongly believe, and it's not so much a belief, it's actually a realization. It's easier to make a Mac secure than it is to make a Windows PC secure. And because there are so many more Windows PC out there than Macs, there are also bigger targets. So yes, some people target the Mac, and there are Mac malware and stuff like that. So I don't want to minimize that, but still, because there are fewer Macs than Windows PCs, we are less targets, so we are less targeted. And also, on top of that, it's actually easier when you know what to do and how to do it. And that's one of the things that I teach. You can really crank in the security of a Mac. And on top of that, if you have an issue, and if there is, so like somebody stole a MacBook, for instance, there are easy mechanism to remotely lock the computer or wipe the computer, and provided that you have some good backup and it's easier to set up backup system on the Mac than on Windows PCs. You could be up and running the same day, right? If you lost or if you broke a MacBook in the morning, you could be up and running before the end of the day. And so that's why, for me, and we're not even talking about AI yet, because I still need to talk about AI, but just for that, for the practical stuff, the longevity, the durability of the components, the ease of use, and the possibility to automate stuff at the operating system level with built-in tools, right? You don't have to install third-party tools. With built-in tools like shortcuts and automator on the Mac, you can already do a lot of things. And then something I forgot to talk about, these Apple silicon chips, right? These new Apple-made processors. What very few people know is that since 2020, they have 16 cores of neural engine, which is a part of the processor on top of the GPU and the CPU, dedicated for machine learning tasks. And so nowadays, really, the Apple chips or the Apple platform is one of the best platforms to do AI-related stuff and to run locally AI models with a good performance. The Mac is really a great platform for that.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I have never used a Mac before. I've never used a MacBook. I've always been a PC and a Windows guy. But the way you broke things down and went into great details, it actually makes me want to try out a Mac, actually. Those are really cool features you just mentioned. And to be honest, I didn't know a majority of them before now. And that's really cool. So, tell us, Damien, what's a cybersecurity habit that every solopreneur should have, but most don't have?
Yeah, the number one security related thing that I tackle with my solopreneur clients is password management. Right, most of them, they have a Word document or an Excel file that is not even password protected. And this is where they store their passwords. And also, even though they are doing that, so that even though they know that they should not try to remember all those passwords, because inevitably when you only store your passwords in your head, you will automatically inevitably reuse passwords, which is really bad, really, really, really bad. But even then, even when they have, and I've seen that the Google, the Microsoft Word document with all the passwords, yeah, inevitably they still use the same password because they don't want to come up, and they don't really have a system to come up with random passwords. right? And they don't like the idea of random passwords. So for me, the number one is really to jump and to use a password manager. And you, depending on the platform that you are, you could use built-in ones. The one from Apple that is on the Mac, but also on the iPhone and on the iPad. Those password managers are very good, very secure, and also they fully synchronize using through iCloud, right? iCloud is the cloud glue by Apple, offered by Apple. And another reason why I like the Apple platform and for solopreneurs is when you are fully in the Apple ecosystem, and especially on the health and password side, it is fully encrypted. It's actually what we call doubly encrypted. It is encrypted once, and then it's encrypted a second time, but the second encryption, Apple doesn't have the key, which means that even if Apple gets hacked, which I don't think it will happen, but let's say if one day Apple gets hacked, still they will not, the person who hacked Apple will not be able to get our passwords, because there is another level of encryption. And this level of encryption is based on the devices that we have, the iPhone, the iPad, the Mac. And so on the Apple platform, the built-in password manager is great. On the Android side, if you use Google as your main cloud service provider, again, Google Passwords, very good system, and synchronizes with Chrome and so on. So, and then on Windows, Microsoft is moving away from password management from their Authenticator app. They're actually going into passwordless solutions now. So they want to get rid of password completely. But if you still need to manage passwords on Windows, I don't recommend using the browser unless you are able to create a master password to protect your passwords, because otherwise anybody who has access to the machine can see your passwords. But for that, I really recommend third-party solutions. And the one, and now I'm blanking on it, the one that I really recommend is Bitwarden, right? Bitwarden is a freemium plan. It's actually an open source solution. So because it's open source, they really can't afford to not have a free version, because as soon as they remove the free version, somebody else will fork the thing and will create an alternative which will be free. So basically, you can use Bitwarden completely for free, and it's very good, and it's audited and security audited and so on. And it works cross-platform as a password manager. So for me, using a password manager is step number one. Step number two, once you have a password manager that you are comfortable using, start going away from those reused passwords to randomly generated passwords for most accounts, in the sense that when you realize that you have the same password for Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and maybe your web host and stuff like that, then you go to those accounts and you say change password, and then you let the password manager generate a random password, and I would say 16 characters minimum, combining upper and lowercase letters, numbers plus symbols, and then stop worrying about that, because this level of complexity, it will take millions of years for anyone to try to crack them. So you will be much safer than 99% of the population. And then step number 3 is take advantage of two-factor authentication. Right? Two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication is, rather than solely relying upon a username and password, you also have ideally a 6-digit code that changes every 30 seconds. And nowadays, password managers can store those. So for low stake accounts, right, for accounts that are not very important, I don't know, like your your miles for when you fly, or I don't know, low stake user accounts. For me, there is no issue storing the second factor, so these rolling digits inside the password manager. For more, let's say, critical accounts like your email accounts or Dropbox, if you have cloud storage accounts, for that, I recommend to use a third-party authenticator. You can install for free Google Authenticator that works. It's a multi-platform. You can use Authy, which is another one. So you have a bunch of, also Microsoft Authenticator. You have a bunch of solutions that allow you to synchronize those code between various devices, and they are then separate from your password manager, because even though the probability of a password manager to be hacked is very low, it's still not zero. And so, when for those critical accounts, still separate the second factor authentication from the password manager itself.
Wonderful, wonderful. So finally, Damien, tell us, what does innovation mean to you, and how does it relate to your work and life?
Which innovation are you talking about? AI innovations or?
I mean, the word innovation generally, what it means to you in your field, in cybersecurity, in AI, however you want to put it. I just want to know. I mean, I want to see the meaning of the word from your own perspective.
Okay, yes, thank you for clarifying the question. Yeah, so the word innovation, the way I see it, I was thinking about it earlier today, about the fact that, so I see myself as a continuous improver, but I'm also a perfectionist. And so it's the two sides of the same coin, right? Being perfectionist versus being a continuous improver basically is the same thing. But in the end, right, there is this desire to improve, to be better, to I don't remember who said that, but it's like, if you want to reach excellence, try perfection, right? If you try to be perfect, you will never be perfect, right? Perfection does not exist. But if you try to be perfect, you will become excellent. And for me, innovation is that. Innovation is the tools, the means for basically becoming excellent. If you don't innovate, if you don't find ways to innovate, you will never achieve this, for me, this level of excellence. And a lot of people mix up innovation and invention. For me, it's really two different things, right? Invention is coming up with a totally novel idea, whereas innovation is making things or seeing things slightly differently, but that gives you an edge, that gives you a way to be better than everybody else, or to be better than yourself yesterday. And so for me, innovation is, you cannot not innovate if you try to reach excellence, right? If you don't try to reach excellence, you will not be pushed, or you will not have any motivation for innovation. But for me, innovation is how can I be better today or tomorrow than I was yesterday? And it's not being afraid of realizing that whatever you thought and whichever way you were doing things were not the best. I'm really not. I don't have in that sense. I don't really have a lot of ego, in the sense that I don't think that what I'm doing right now is anything spectacular, or because I'm open to challenge myself, challenge my assumptions. And there's also something else that I realize, an ingredient for innovation, or how do I say that? It's something that I've realized with myself a lot is that the ability to see patterns and the ability to combine things. A lot of innovation comes from taking something that's existing in one market and applying it into another market, or thinking about an idea, a concept, and see how you can merge two concepts together, which the sum of those two things will be much bigger than the individual themselves. And yeah, I like to do that. Actually, I like to see things that people don't see, or see ways to combine things that people will look at those two things and they will always see them separate, but somehow I find a way to combine them, and then to either improve my own processes or to improve the experience of my clients, or the students, the trainees in my training sessions, and so on. And sometimes I tell that to the trainees, the people I train, so that I've never given the same training session. I've never given the same training lesson or the same training session the same way. Every time I give a training session, I find a way to tweak it slightly so that it's easier, and it's easier for the students, the trainees, to understand the concept. And I always try to look, and for me that's innovation, right? That's one type of innovation. It's the way you deliver a service is slightly better today than it was yesterday.
That is awesome. So, finally, tell us, where can listeners find you, contact you, or get to join your trainings?
Yeah, so for everything related to training, and that's corporate training, but also individual, again, what I call coaching, it's at easytech.lu. It's LU for Luxembourg. So that's for the business, or the corporate side of things. And then if among you, the listener, if you are really passionate about running your business, solopreneur business on a Mac, then I invite you to check out the Macpreneur Podcast, and that's at macpreneur.com, and you will see all the episodes there. There are links also to the YouTube channel, because my podcast episodes are recorded also audio and video, and so you will find those two there.
Wonderful. So, Damien, it's been a really great conversation with you, and I'm really excited to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Ezekiel. It was fun.